Welcome to week 7. This chapter is called Recovering a Sense of Connection. Typically, I go back over the chapter and I'll write notes for the video and what my thoughts throughout the week were. I guess I didn't do that this week when I just went to check my notebook, so we're just gonna wing it. You're gonna get it right in the moment. This chapter starts out with a section called Listening. And again, it references the morning pages, how this entire practice is designed so that you can listen to what your inner thoughts really are, maybe that you've been tuning out this whole time, and start listening to the people and the things happening around you rather than what you assume you should be doing. Art is not about thinking something up. It is about the opposite, getting something down. The directions are important here. I'd never heard these phrases before, but I found them really interesting at the very beginning of the section. When an actor is in the moment, he or she is engaged in listening for the next right thing creatively. When a painter is painting, he or she may begin with a plan, but that plan is soon surrendered to the painting's own plan. This is often expressed as the brush takes the next stroke. In dance, in composition, in sculpture, the experience is the same. We are more the conduit than the creator of what we express. Whenever I interview for a job and they ask what my greatest strength is, I always say the fact that I have an artist's background means I'm very adaptable. Never do you start a project and from A to Z does everything go as planned. You're gonna open up a glue and the glue is dried up. You're gonna go to use the spray paint and the nozzle breaks, and all of a sudden there's paint everywhere you didn't want paint to be. You're gonna be exposing a photo, and a corner of it just doesn't expose the same way that the others do. There's always something, and being able to adapt to that is part of what makes the art so fascinating to me. It's also what shows the human touch and the fact that this was created by a person. But I bring that creativity, that adaptability to other aspects of my life, and I had never heard this saying before, but I found that it really resonated with me. Art is an act of tuning in and dropping down the well. It is as though all the stories, paintings, music, performances in the world live just under the surface of our normal consciousness. Like an underground river, they flow through us like a stream of ideas that we can tap down into. As artists, we drop down into the well, into the stream. We hear what's down there and we act on it. More like taking dictation than anything fancy having to do with art. These moments of clear inspiration require that we move into them on faith. We can practice these small leaps of faith daily in our pages and on our artist dates. We can learn not only to listen, but also to hear with increasing accuracy that inspired intuitive voice that says, do this, try this, say this. I wouldn't say that it's come from my morning pages per se, but this entire experience, particularly the exercises more so, have really encouraged me to continue the mentality that it's important to just get something down, to just make it, and you can make it better later. Not so much an artist prayer, but that's kind of become my mantra over the last few weeks. Then we move into the next section, perfectionism. Tilly Olson, I don't know who that is, correctly calls it the knife of the perfectionist attitude in art. You may call it something else, getting it right. You may call it, or fixing it before I go any further. You may call it having standards. What you should be calling it is perfectionism. Perfectionism has nothing to do with getting it right. It has nothing to do with fixing things, and it has nothing to do with standards. Perfectionism is a refusal to let yourself move ahead. It is a loop, an obsessive, debilitating closed system that causes you to get stuck in the details of what you are writing or painting or making to lose sight of the whole. I have been a perfectionist for as long as I can remember, and I want to say that I feel really fortunate to have had a couple of professors while I was an undergrad that on the very first day of class, they would be like, if you're a perfectionist, you got to let that go. You got to let that go. I think my professor and artistic mentor that has drilled that in the most is Casey Lees. I think her approach to art making and her attitude in general has been very inspiring for me, but she was teaching me neon, and when you're working with glass, when you're working with flames, so many things that are new material-wise and also kind of unpredictable sometimes, you have to let go of being such a perfectionist. I still strive for a certain quality of work, like my own personal standard. No one else has set that on me, but I would say that working in new mediums, especially tactile things where so many things can go wrong. Recently, this last weekend, I'll talk about it later, but I was doing a wet plate class, and even the instructor, wonderful guy, he's been doing this for years now, and he's like, I mess up all the time. It is so hard to get down the motions. And even then, like, there's just flukes that happen. And so it's not a new idea for me to work on my perfectionism, but my perfectionism really is debilitating. Like, it's an extreme case. So I'm constantly confronting it. Following that, I also like these portions. For the perfectionist, there are no first drafts, rough sketches, warm up exercises. Every draft is meant to be the final, perfect set in stone. Yeah, I am trying to let myself enjoy experimenting and working through things, and I think that for me it took years to do that. So maybe depending on where you are in your like creative journey, it doesn't it doesn't necessarily have to be like a formal art practice, but if this is the first time that you are picking up watercolor or the first time that you've gone to a pottery or ceramics class, you're gonna be bad in the beginning. And that maybe bad isn't the word, but it's going to take time not only to gain the skills, but also to gain your intentions. So it wasn't until like the end of my first year in college that I figured out kind of what I wanted to make art about. And that continued to change every year. The only way I figured it out was by continuing to try new things. But I still feel this like immense pressure about when I make something, it has to be just awe inspiring and the greatest work of art ever. I'm trying to appreciate when I look back now and I see something I made 5 years ago and I'm like, oh, I don't think that's very good. It was good for me then. And if I hadn't made it then, I wouldn't have made the next thing. And that next thing is what helped me make what I'm currently making. These Barbie paintings behind me, I started them in 2022, and I'll do a whole thing about them when they're all done. I want to talk about this idea and project more, but as a basis to this perfectionism, I hadn't oil painted in years. I made excuses that I didn't have the space or the time. And then when I started working on them and telling people about it, they were all like, that's kind of fucking stupid. Like, who cares? Why Barbie? And I knew in me why, I just didn't know how to say it. But by making them and working through it, I now have written a statement or like an essay about why it was that I was drawn to them. And I learned more about myself. I improved my painting skills while making them. Do I think I'll look back at these in 5 years and think it was some of my best work? I don't really think that'll be it. But I know that making them and finishing it and working through it has been really important to my like practice as a whole. What am I thinking about? What am I trying to say? And so it's not easy, but I am actively trying to work on my perfectionism and appreciate that some of the best art has flaws. Like there's so many like little hairs and things in these paintings. My technique is not the best. I never actually took painting classes formally. I do it because I enjoy it. Yeah, you get the gist. To a perfectionist, there is always room for improvement. The perfectionist calls this humility. In reality, it is egotism. It is the pride that makes us want to write a perfect script, paint a perfect painting, and perform a perfect audition monologue. Perfectionism is not a quest for the best, it is a pursuit of the worst in ourselves. The part that tells us that nothing we do will ever be good enough. This is a normal part of creativity. Letting go. We always do the best that we can by the light we have to see by. I tried last year to make a short film, and I was so anxious about doing it because I've never ever done that. I've never written a formal script. I have a couple of ideas, and I'd love to take a script writing class, but I don't really know how to translate the vision that I have into a step-by-step that makes sense for a team to work with. How do the actors know what they really need to do? How does the lighting crew, the camera, so on and so forth. And I was terrified and I put it off for a really long time because I didn't want to make it if it wasn't going to be good. And the truth of the matter is I came to a point where I was like, I just need to make it because the only way I'll get better is if I start making it. It's not going to be the best ever, but I can't expect to make better later if I never even made the first thing. I find myself stuck in that place a lot of I'm not ready to make something, but I'm not ready sometimes to make it because I haven't done the work before it. You have to work over that like hiccup, that wall, that little barrier that you've made for yourself, sometimes a great barrier. And I just found this entire section like incredibly relatable. I said in the previous video for week 6, since we've made it more than halfway through, that I finally felt like I was getting more out of this project. I definitely think that week by week and at week 7 especially, I'm feeling it's even more tailored to me. It's the right time, right place, and that I'm finding, aside from it's really relatable, that maybe I'm just more open and receptive. I really do need to be called out. I was always my best growing up in sports when I had a coach or a trainer who was like really diligent and on my case and didn't let me give up or quit. I think maybe there's a skill to be made here of converting your perfectionist voice that says things need to be perfect all the time and finding a way to keep that voice, but change the tone a little bit to things are only going to be great if you keep making, using it as an encouragement that, yeah, you can make better work, but you're going to have to make the bad work first. Next, we move into a section called risk. Makes plenty of sense. If you're going to give up perfectionism, you need to make some risks. The question posed is, what would I do if I didn't have to do it perfectly? The answer is a great deal more than I am. Yeah. We have all heard that the unexamined life is not worth living, but consider too that the unlived life is not worth examining. The success of a creative recovery hinges on our ability to move out of the head and into action. This brings us squarely to risk. Most of us are practiced at talking ourselves out of risk. We are skilled speculators on the probable pain of self-exposure. I get why you start this chapter and most of them by reestablishing morning pages. Ideally, hopefully, you're doing them every single day, and it's making you confront at the beginning of the day, every day, these barriers that you're setting up for yourself. Or hopefully, you're also doing them in your exercises. We deny that in order to do something well, we must first be willing to do it badly. Instead, we opt for setting our limits to the point where we feel assured of success. Living within these bounds, we may feel stifled, smothered, despairing, and bored, but yes, we do feel safe, and safety is a very expensive illusion. In order to risk, we must jettison our accepted limits. We must break through, I can't because I'm too old, too broke, too shy, too proud, self-defended, timorous. Usually when we say we can't do something, what we mean is that we won't do something, unless we can guarantee that we'll do it perfectly. I couldn't be guiltier. I feel like the prime example of the person that this applies to, but I can also see how it applies to everyone in a little way, even when it's not necessarily art making or the most creative efforts, even just like taking the commitment, the risk, the time to go to school, to pursue a job that you might want, but aren't confident that you deserve. I do it in all aspects of my life. And it's certainly harder when you have mental illness. Once we're willing to accept that anything worth doing might even be worth doing badly, our options widen. If I didn't have to do it perfectly, I would try. Stand-up comedy, modern dancing, whitewater rafting, archery, learning German, figure drawing, figure skating, being a platinum blonde, puppeteering, trapeze, water ballet, polo, wearing red lipstick, taking a couture class, writing short stories, reading my poetry in public, a spontaneous tropical vacation, learning to shoot video, learning to ride a bike, and taking a water class. To put it differently, very often a risk worth taking is simply for the sake of taking it. There is something enlivening about expanding our self-definition, and risk does exactly that. Selecting a challenge and meeting it creates a sense of self-empowerment that becomes the ground for further successful challenges. Viewed this way, running a marathon increases your chance of writing a full-length play. Writing a full-length play gives you a leg up on a marathon. I'm trying to also explore just a million mediums all the time. I'm really grateful, and I pride myself too in pursuing an interdisciplinary art practice, because maybe the work I'm making right now, maybe it's these paintings, they don't have any photo in them, but I took photos and I knew how to do the lighting so that I could then make the paintings, and so on and so forth. This applies to a lot of mediums, and then I can merge them, or the techniques or just the perseverance to get through one project can help inform another. Before I go on to the next section, I do want to say there's a great deal of things that I find myself saying if I didn't have to do it perfectly, because I do, because I'm a perfectionist, then I would do. I've always loved music and want to make music, but aside from obviously the block I give myself, we just mentioned finances, money, I can't do it because of money. I tell myself because I wouldn't do it perfectly. Like I don't have a perfect voice, or I wouldn't make the best first single, and all those sorts of things. The same goes for learning another language. I have been trying and giving up, in all honesty, giving up time and time again over the last decade to learn ASL, Polish, and Irish. A big thing for me confronting this, and also previously mentioned in the other videos, is it's not only doing this workbook, like I was already in a place that I was willing to change. I love to use the saying, you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. You have to be in a place and in a mindset that you're actually going to give. And so if you approach this workbook, if you approach the artist way and you're not ready to give everyday morning pages or give a few exercises a week or be a little bit more open-minded, then yeah, you're gonna quit early on. You're not gonna get the full effect of every week, even if you do all of it. And I was also in a place of maybe slightly desperation. I kind of hit a breaking point that I was like, something needs to give. And I just uprooted my entire life and I moved across the country because I knew that I needed to just give it a chance and see what it could be rather than constantly sitting around and being like, oh, well, maybe if I had. Now we move on to the final section, jealousy. Jealousy is a map. Each of our jealousy maps differs. Each of us will probably be surprised by some of the things we discover on our own. I, for example, have never been eaten alive with resentment over the success of women novelists, but I took an unhealthy interest in the fortunes and misfortunes of women playwrights. I was their harshest critic until I wrote my first play. With that action, my jealousy vanished, replaced by a feeling of camaraderie. My jealousy had actually been a mask for my fear of doing something that I really wanted to do, but was not yet brave enough to take action towards. Jealousy is always a mask for fear that we aren't able to get what we want, frustration that somebody else seems to be getting what is rightfully ours, and even if we are too frightened to reach for it, at its root, jealousy is a stingy emotion. It doesn't allow for the abundance and multiplicity of the universe. Jealousy tells us there is room for only one poet, one painter, one whatever you dream of being. Before I cover the last part of that section that I really liked, because I liked the whole part, I'm also incredibly guilty of jealousy. In my art practice, and obviously just like my life itself, I'm trying to confront a lot of the ideas that I was raised with. And whether that was from family or from, your community, your school, the people you were around, or just society and culture as a whole, there is such established ideology that girls should be jealous of one another and a sense of competition. If you disagree, we can't get into it too deep today. But at least in the West, in the US, where I grew up, I had to transfer schools. I had to leave clubs and I gave up sports. I gave up a lot of things I liked because of this competition and sense of jealousy that was constantly being sown between girls. And I'll say I definitely felt jealous of boys too sometimes and just their freedom, especially in high school, and the fact that they could just go and do whatever they wanted without so many worries. I am very grateful because I didn't have that experience for the first time when I went to college. I think there's a sense of maturity to it, and also you kind of live in your own little world and bubble at whatever university or place you go to. I won't say that jealousy obviously does not exist. It's very present, and I felt jealous all the time of other people's success when they got the exhibition that I wanted, or when the teacher praised them more in class. When people, just in general, my other classmates, seem to prefer one critique over another. But I also really developed a further sense of empathy, and the fact of being in an artistic community, I found that it doesn't do any good to compare yourselves when you're also making such drastically different things. And ideally, you should all be there just to support each other. The critiques should be, how can you better express yourself in the way that you were trying to? And so other people are informing you of what they perceived of what you tried to express. It is not always that simple. But I have been fortunate enough over the last few years, as I have grown in the communities that I try to participate in and the art world as a whole, to better understand how jealousy, yes, can be a map. A map, not necessarily to compare myself to others, even though I still do. I open up social media every damn day and I think, damn, I wish I was doing it like that. But a map to kind of show the contrasts and, this person doesn't have X, Y, and Z. The grass is always greener on the other side. So the way that I'm doing things that's unique to me, that's also good. And, if I feel jealous about this person doing something, then it's probably something I need to reflect on myself. I need to look in the mirror and realize that there's something I'm missing that I need for me. And it really, at the end of the day, has nothing to do with the other person. The truth revealed by action in the direction of our dreams is that there is room for all of us, but jealousy produces tunnel vision. It narrows our ability to see things in perspective, it strips us of our ability to see other options. The biggest lie that jealousy tells us is that we have no choice but to be jealous. Perversely, jealousy strips us of all our will to act, when action holds the key to our freedom. So now you have an exercise, the jealousy map. Your jealousy map will have 3 columns. In the first column, name whom you're jealous of. Next to each name, write why, and be as specific and accurate as you can. In the third column, you list one action you can take to move toward the creative risk and out of jealousy. When jealousy bites like a snake bite, it requires an immediate antidote. So I did do my jealousy map. I first started with confronting my friends because as much as I admire my friends, I'm also jealous of them, and I'm jealous of them sometimes for the same reasons I admire them. I try to, like I said, convert that jealousy, that risk, that perfectionism, and realize that it says more about me than what I think it's actually about, what I've put the focus onto. In this case, in a kind of like good way, I'm jealous of some of my friends' success and I'm happy for them. I'm jealous of some of their techniques or methods. And like I said in previous weeks, I pride myself in my friends because I think they're like the best people ever. They were folks that I was probably really jealous or like inspired by. And so I sought out the antidote rather than sitting and wallowing and being a victim to comparison. I was like, hey, I really like this thing you do, and I want to do it in some way too. Can we do it together? And then, of course, there's people I'm jealous of that I've never met and I compare myself to, and it does no good, but it's inevitable. And most of them are celebrities. Most of my jealousy is assuming that there's an ease or a comfort to being famous, to having a lot of money. As I've gotten older, over the years, I've kind of learned that that seems like one of the worst lives you could live. I think time and time again now I watch podcasts of influencers, comedians, whatnot, and they've gotten a great deal of fame and they just talk about how much they've lost and how much privacy they don't have, or how every little thing they do is scrutinized. And it doesn't always seem like such a fair trade. So I also think that practicing jealousy or anti-jealousy for me is maybe thinking of how I can be more honest and help other people and make it clearer how I also don't have it all figured out. I don't get it right every time. Like, how can I just remove jealousy from the equation as a whole for everyone? After the jealousy exercise, there's one more, and it's called archaeology. When I was little, the first job I thought that I wanted to have when I grew up was an archaeologist. The phrases that follow are more of your sleuth work. Very often, we buried parts of ourselves that can be uncovered by some digging. Not only will your answers tell you what you missed in the past, they will tell you what you can be doing now to comfort and encourage your artist child. It's not too late, no matter what your ego tells you. Complete the following phrases. As a kid, I missed the chance to play in the band or be in the choir. 2, as a kid, I lacked a lot of support. 3, as a kid, I could have used more money. Number 4, as a kid, I dreamed of being famous. I think that was really inspired by my generation growing up on shows like Hannah Montana, High School Musical, Camp Rock, where the plot was always this like main character, manic pixie dream girl who gets discovered, and all of a sudden she goes from being the most introverted and loneliest person to the most popular and fun, exciting person. Number 5, as a kid, I wanted a lot of things. Mostly, I just wanted whatever all the other kids had. 6, in my house, we never had enough patience. I don't want to say money for everything. 7, as a kid, I needed more confidence. 8, I'm sorry that I will never again see the art teachers I had when I was younger. I think about them a lot, and like the things that they said to me, the small ways they went out of their way to encourage me, and I just want them to see that their investment paid off. 9, for years I have missed and wondered about. God, that's a hard one. I feel like there's so many things. I think I dwell on the past quite a bit. But I also, as important as it is to not live in the past, I think that it's also important to learn from the past. So it's not so much when I was like a kid, but when I was in high school and I did my exchange, I feel like I was constantly at a crossroads and I had to choose which path to go down. And I reflect on that time all the time. And I think about, like, what if I had made the other choice? 10, I beat myself up about the loss of a lot of friendships. I've had a lot of really unfortunate friendship breakups that I didn't see coming. And it felt like I lost a part of me each time. It's important to acknowledge our positive inventory as well as our shortfalls, so take positive stock of what good you have to build on in these phrases. 1, I have a loyal friend in Maggie, Sarah, Laura, Michaela, Allie, Mila, my partner Jules. I could probably just keep going on. I feel incredibly fortunate not only to have one of the friends that I have now, but as many as I do. 2, one thing I like about my town is I love the colors here. I wear a very neutral color palette personally, and my home is also a pretty neutral color palette. But when I step outside, I just feel like there's so many colors all the time, and I feel very inspired. I think my brain's a bit in the gutter here because number 3 is I think I have nice, and the first thing I always think of is either boobs or butt. But I did recently get a new haircut, and I'm starting to feel better about my hair. 4, writing my morning pages has shown me I can improve my writing overall. I've kind of felt like I had a drop off the last few years. I wasn't writing as much, and then I was like, damn, I'm not a really good writer, or was I ever even a decent writer? And now just enjoying it is as fulfilling as I need. 5, I'm taking a greater interest in like art and tech and kind of coding. A little bit overwhelming, kind of scared of it, but I'm really fascinated by more digital media. 6, I believe I am getting better at everything. I think everything I am working on, I am getting better at. 7, my artist has started to pay more attention to synchronicity. 8, my self-care is right now reading. 9, I don't mean to be so repetitious, but I feel more inspired, just kind of free and open-minded. 10, possibly my creativity is flourishing. Lastly, we have the tasks. I'll be quick. 1, make this phrase a mantra. Treating myself like a precious object will make me strong. Watercolor or crayon or calligraph this phrase. Post it where you will see it daily. We tend to think about being hard on ourselves. It will make us strong, but it is cherishing ourselves that gives us strength. 2, give yourself time to listen to one side of an album just for joy. You may want to doodle as you listen, allowing yourself to draw to the shapes, emotions, and thoughts you hear in the music. Notice how just 20 minutes can refresh you. My album this week was Forever's a Feeling by Lucy Dacus. There's plenty of really good albums. That was just the one that I picked. 3, take yourself into a sacred space, a church, a synagogue, library, grove of trees, and allow yourself to savor the silence and healing solitude. Each of us has a personal idea of what a sacred space is. I went to the library. 4, create one wonderful smell in your house with soup, incense, fir, branches, candles, whatever. Just candles for me. 5, wear your favorite item of clothing for no special occasion. I got dressed up for us to literally just go run like some pretty basic errands. 6, buy yourself one wonderful pair of socks, one wonderful pair of gloves, one wonderfully comforting, self-loving something. I went and I finally bought some new jeans. I bought 2 pairs, not one. 7, collage. Collect a stack of at least 10 magazines which you will allow yourself to freely dismember. Setting a 20-minute time limit for yourself, tear literally through the magazines, collecting any images that reflect your life or interests. Think of this collage as a form of pictorial autobiography. Then number 8 was to quickly list 5 favorite films, if there's any common denominators, and then are there traces of these films in your collage? Similarly, number 9 is to name your favorite topics to read about, and then were these topics in your collage? And 10, give your collage a place of honor. Even a secret place of honor is all right, in your closet, in a drawer, anywhere that's yours. You may want to do a new one every few months, or collage more thoroughly a dream you are trying to accomplish. So I did do a collage. Here it is. I did it with my partner. He did his own. And I had such a hard time finding materials for us to collage with, which was part of why I went to the library. And I don't think it's like the very best collage I've ever done. It was mostly what I had and what stood out to me with what I had. but I do tend to do collages, I would say at least once every like 6 months or so. I love to do a collage at the beginning of the year, but there's definitely like a repetition. Like it is always some sort of art, female empowerment, a little bit of food, and a lot of travel. So we've made it to the check-in. One, how many days this week did you do your morning pages? Have you allowed yourself to daydream? A few creative risks. Are you coddling your artist with childhood loves? I did my morning pages every day. I don't know if I'm coddling my child artist, but I do think I'm starting to take more creative risks. I've kind of gotten back into making reels and just editing in general, and that always makes me like really anxious. I have a horrible time comparing myself to others. And also, I create based on the mood I'm in. So to put an expectation of like daily creation can be really overwhelming for me. Two, did you do your artist date this week? Did you use it to take any risks? What did you do and how did it feel? My partner Jules and I both went to a tintype class at High Desert Alchemy in Santa Fe. I did a morning session and Jules did the afternoon session, so we weren't in it together. And then in the time that we weren't together, we both on our own went and adventured through Santa Fe a bit more. It was incredible. And I think I'll talk about it a little more in probably a short form video later. It's definitely led me to think more about like what my creative photo process and physical development will look like going forward. Three, did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? I'm experiencing synchronicity like every single day now, and I'm calling it out, and it makes me like really giddy. Four, were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. I think that taking the leap to invest the money to take a class and setting aside time and driving an hour to go do it and an hour back was really big for me. Just because I constantly don't actually invest in myself, I think it was really well timed too between week 6 abundance and week 7 connection. It's encouraged me to actually spend the $15 to go to this figure drawing session. And also, I think piggybacking off of last week, I'm just being more considerate of what are the impulse ways I spend money and what do I actually want to be investing in. With that being said, that's all of week 7. This was a really big week for me, so this video is a little bit longer. If you stuck around for the whole time, thank you so much. And I look forward to sharing next week with you.